Hello, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Sydney. I'm a perinatal athletic therapist and postnatal fitness specialist. I'm currently 7 weeks postpartum and I'm taking you guys through kind of early motherhood and all the things I'm experiencing. So if any of that seems of interest to you, please feel free to subscribe and stick around for a while. If you've been here for a while, you may have seen my previous video, which was all about my 3-year review of my first IUD. I had a really positive experience with my first IUD, so I will put that video below if that is something that you'd be interested in. I go into a ton of detail with that one in regards to getting it put in, the symptoms I experienced for the few years after getting it. Like I said, I had a really positive experience, so I'm hoping that this experience is the same. I am 7 weeks postpartum with my first baby, and so this experience will probably be a little bit different for me because my anatomy is now slightly different. Now, as much as I love my son, I do not want another one at this moment in time. So I have opted for getting another IUD because I had such a great experience last time, and so I'm kind of hoping that it will be similar this time as well. I will be getting the IUD in 2 days. I picked up the IUD from my pharmacy yesterday. So essentially I went to my 6-week appointment with my midwife and she asked me which kind of birth control I wanted, which is a pretty standard question that you're going to get at your 6-week appointment, whether you're with an OB or a midwife. And I said, you know, let's just go for the IUD again. So I ended up getting the KYLEENA. That's the same one I had last time. I went and she basically just put the prescription in for me, and then my pharmacy called me when it was ready. This is what the package looks like when you get it. I'm just covering up my information there. So I got the KYLEENA. It comes in this super long box. This time they gave it to me in a bag. Last time I just had to walk through the store with this in my hand. I don't know why I didn't think to ask for a bag, but they didn't give me one. So it was much better having it in a bag this time. It shows the actual size of the KYLEENA of the IUD on the back. So I just want to show you in comparison to my finger. That is what the IUD looks like. It's only about 1 inch long. It's super small. So yeah, that is what the KYLEENA IUD box looks like. I'm gonna actually open it for you. I don't know if I'm supposed to open it or not, but I'm gonna open it so that you can see. So I live in Ontario. I have benefits coverage for myself, and then I also have benefits coverage through my husband. Mine does not cover any contraceptives other than oral, so this was not covered. My husband's does. My husband's covers 70%. This costs me, let me give you the exact amount. This cost me $420.39. So it costs a pretty penny to get an IUD. If we didn't have coverage, I would probably still get it anyways, because honestly, like I said, I had such a good experience last time. My husband's covers 70% of that cost. So we will be getting a large portion of that $420 back, but it is quite pricey if you don't have coverage. When I got my first one, I was under 25, so I was still covered under my parents. And so I think I only had to pay I paid like $100 or something the first time. And I totally forgot that I even had to pay for it until she told me how much it was. So I'm gonna open this for you so you can see what it looks like on the inside. If this is going to freak you out, don't look. Fast forward like a minute. I'll tell you where you should go if you don't want to see what this looks like, if this is going to freak you out. I want to show you why it's in such a long box and what it looks like on the inside. Essentially the length of the box is because the applicator is also in here. So I will take it out so I can show you. the full IUD applicator. Little IUD is right at the end there. I explained the whole process in my previous video. I'm going to talk to you about it again later. But essentially what happens is they pull back this little piece here, which pulls the IUD into that tube and folds up the little prong things that are sticking out. It folds them up. They put the IUD in and then they pull the applicator out and the prongs go back out. I don't know what else to call them except for prongs, like the T part. The T part goes into the tube and then it comes out of the tube. So yeah, that is why the box is so long, is because the full applicator is in there. Then along in the box is just a bunch of patient information stuff. So they'll likely give that to you after they're done putting it in. So the reason I chose the KYLEENA was because that was honestly the one I had last time. The reason I got it last time was because I had some pretty intense hormonal imbalances prior to getting the IUD, and this seemed to be one of the better options in regards to what would support those hormonal imbalances in the best way. I had conversations with my naturopath, my family doctor, and my gynecologist, and all three agreed that this was a good option for me. Essentially, the way an IUD works is, or the way that the KYLEENA specifically works, it inhibits the ability for your uterine lining to grow, which means a fertilized egg will have a really hard time attaching to that uterine wall. So along with that, that means you will likely have very few periods because that uterine lining is not growing. Therefore, there's nothing to shed. There's nothing for your uterus to shed. So when I had it last time, I had it for 4 years and I rarely had a period. Even if I did have a period, it was very, very, very light. It was just spotting for a couple days essentially. So along with the decrease in the uterine lining, it also thickens your cervical mucus, so it's harder for sperm to reach the egg. With any contraceptive, there is a chance that you will still get pregnant when you have it. With an IUD, if you become pregnant with an IUD, they actually can't take the IUD out. It has to stay in because it's inside the uterus. So they obviously can't go into the amniotic sac to go get it. So it will actually stay in throughout the entire pregnancy process. But there is always that chance. There's always a risk that you may end up pregnant with it in. So I'm going on Thursday to get my IUD put in. I will be taking 2 extra strength ibuprofen before I go in. I've given birth to a child. I think I can handle the discomfort that's coming. If it's anything like my last one, it will honestly be a 20-second procedure. It is so fast. It's a pretty strong pinch. And like I said, I'll talk to you about that process on Thursday after I get it done. It is so fast, so I'm hoping that a couple ibuprofen will be good enough pain medication for me. But I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in regards to that. So I guess I will just chat with you guys on Thursday. Okay, IUD insertion has happened. I got home, oh my gosh, I don't even know what time it is. It is 4:30 and it was inserted at 2:30, so it's been a few hours. So I will tell you about the experience. Now keep in mind, this is my experience. Your experience might not be the same. Cooper's just making a little bed for himself over here. Your experience might not be the same. Your experience might be way different. This experience was completely 180 degrees different from my last experience. That's in the video that I tagged below. So yeah, I'll just get into it. So essentially, this appointment was not at my gynecologist. My first time I got my IUD, I went to my gynecologist and he inserted the IUD for me, and then like a few weeks later I had to go and get an ultrasound to determine the positioning of it. They have to make sure it's in the right position in your uterus. Otherwise, you're at a higher risk of it being embedded in your uterus, or it just not sitting properly, or it coming out or causing discomfort, or whatever the case is. So they have to make sure it's in the right position. So I actually got mine inserted by my midwife at a fertility clinic that is in Windsor. And what was really nice is they did the ultrasound there. So I didn't have to book a separate ultrasound to go and get the position determined. They just did it like at the same time. But I'll tell you I'll tell you everything. So when I got to my appointment, they let me into a little room that was connected into the ultrasound / procedure room. So they gave me a blanket that I put around my lower half of my body, and I took my pants and underwear off. I wore my Knix leak-proof underwear just in case there was some bleeding or a little extra lube that, you know, things get messy sometimes. So I wore my Knix leak-proof underwear, but I took pants and underwear off. I put that blanket around. I brought Archer into the room, and there was actually another ultrasound tech that came in to hang out with him just in case he was going to get really upset or anything. So that was actually amazing. So I got into the procedure room, and they had like the ultrasound cart there ready to go. They asked me to come with a full bladder, and I also took 2 ibuprofen before I went. They didn't tell me to take ibuprofen. I just was like, you know what? I might as well just take them if it's going to be like last time. They didn't give me any kind of cervical softener or anything. They didn't need to because I'm only 7 weeks postpartum. So my cervix should still be, like, my uterus has not gone back to the size that it originally was yet. So my cervix is more than likely a little bit softer than it would have been if I had gotten one prior to pregnancy anyways. So they didn't give me any medications. I just took a couple ibuprofen before I went, and I made sure that my bladder was nice and full. So when I got into the little room, or into the ultrasound room, I hopped on the table. I gave them my IUD. I had to bring it with me, so I gave them my IUD, hopped up on the table, feet in the stirrups, and then they did the whole, you know, scooch, come on, move a little yep, closer, yep, closer. And you're thinking, like, if I come any closer, like, there, okay. We did that whole ordeal. Then they checked to see if my bladder was full enough, and it wasn't. It never flippin' is. She's like, yeah, your bladder's not full enough. I can't really see the, like, fundus or, like, top of my uterus. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Essentially, there was an ultrasound tech that was doing an ultrasound on my stomach, on where my uterus would be, where the top of my uterus would be. And my midwife was doing all the things in my nethers. Honestly, this was the fastest process. Like, getting an IUD inserted is honestly so fast if the person knows what they're doing. So she inserted the speculum, which was actually the most uncomfortable part because I tore when I delivered my child. So things are a little tender down there to begin with. And so the speculum was actually, like, pretty uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say painful. If you've ever had a PAP, any sort of vaginal procedure, anything like that, you will know what I'm talking about. It's just a lot of pressure. And then, yeah, like a little bit of that sort of like fascial pull sort of sensation, which is almost like a burning sensation. So she inserted the speculum, and then I didn't really feel anything aside from that. Like, I don't know if it was just because the speculum was so uncomfortable. I didn't really feel anything else, but to be quite honest, she inserted the IUD, and then she asked the ultrasound tech, can you see it, or am I in a good position? And I was like, wait, that was it? And then she said, no, I just had to measure first to see how far in I needed to go. So essentially, on the probe that I showed you, it has little markers for how many centimeters they're inserting it. So they do that first so that they know, okay, I've hit the top of the uterus, I have to insert 7 centimeters or whatever, and then they actually do the insertion. So that's why she was doing the ultrasound at the same time, because then she was like, oh yep, you're at the top of the uterus there. So then after she measured, then she did the insertion, and she said this one's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. And I'll be honest, I didn't really feel it. I did not feel a whole lot. Now, I talked about in my previous video, I talked about the clamp that they use to grab your uterus or your cervix. They have to grab your cervix in some way to prevent it from moving so that they can insert the IUD properly. I wonder if this is just a practitioner preference, or I'm not sure why different practitioners would use a different clamp, but my gynecologist used one of those clamps that is shaped like this, and so it's like really pointy at the end, and that was the most uncomfortable part for me, was him grabbing my cervix with that grabber clamp. It looks like a stag beetle. I don't know what it's called. I can put a picture. So I talked about that in my previous IUD video. In this IUD insertion, she used a clamp that was flat but circular. I'll put a picture because it's really hard to explain. So it was more of a dull grab rather than a pinch, if that makes sense. And then that was it. And it was so very fast. The entire thing was so fast. So then, because my bladder wasn't full enough and wasn't pushing the uterus into a good position, then she had to do a really quick vaginal ultrasound, which honestly, like 15 seconds. And she was like, oh, yep, it's in a great position. And then that was it. So the whole process was super fast. Not really, I wouldn't call it painful. And keep in mind, I very recently had a baby, and so things are a little looser down there than they would have been if I were to have gotten another one when I was pre-pregnancy. But very little discomfort, so I'm very happy about that. Now, the drive home, I could feel some like dull discomfort in my perineum, which was just more so I think because of the speculum. And now with it being around 4:30, a couple hours later, I don't have any discomfort whatsoever. No cramping or anything like that. But I did notice I have a little bit of spotting, which I noticed when I went to the bathroom just before I sat down to film this video. So I don't know if that will continue, but that's why I wore my leakproof, my Knix leakproof underwear, because I didn't know if I was going to bleed more or not. So yeah, that was my experience. That was a very good experience. I also am very thankful that I had my midwife do it, because I'm very comfortable with her. I have been seeing her as a client for the past almost year, and she's also a colleague of mine, and so I know her very well. I'm very comfortable with her, and everyone at the fertility clinic just made it so comfortable. There was an ultrasound tech that came in because I brought Archer, obviously, and he was on the floor beside the table. And another ultrasound tech came in and was like, I'm not doing anything. Do you want me to sit with him? Because he doesn't like his car seat, so he gets really fussy. And I was like, that would be awesome, because realistically, the more relaxed you are during any of these procedures, the less discomfort you're going to feel. And so I was very thankful that she offered to do that. She was very excited to do it too. So that was really, really nice. So yeah, that was the whole experience. I honestly thought I was going to have a lot more to talk about. I want to share these experiences because I feel like they're just not really talked about in detail, and there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of wondering left when there doesn't need to be. And I think that really the only thing that you need to be wondering about is how it's going to feel for you. The experiences, for the most part, should be fairly similar, aside from the potential of having your ultrasound done separately from the actual insertion. But I don't know, these are normal things that a lot of people experience, and there's really no reason for them to not be talked about. So I like sharing in detail kind of what these experiences are like, because for me, if I'm looking for information on, for example, an IUD insertion, I might be looking for testimonials or other people's experiences, and they're really hard to come by. And so I don't know, I thought I would just share mine. But if you are looking for the insertion as someone who did not previously have a baby, I posted my 3-year review. I talked about this earlier. I posted my 3-year review a year or two ago. I think it was about 2 years ago, and it was about the entire experience, how everything felt, which was a lot more painful the first time. But again, the IUD insertion process is so fast. It is so fast. Like, the actual insertion part takes like less than a minute. It is so incredibly fast. And like I said, the pain levels will definitely vary from person to person, but the experience itself should be fairly similar, I would think. But anyways, if you want a more accurate experience to maybe what you're experiencing, and if my previous video might give that to you, then I would go ahead and check that one out. Any comments, questions, concerns, please feel free to leave them below in this video, or you can leave them in my previous video. I will definitely see if you comment there. So yeah, let me know if you have anything that you want to share or anything that you want to ask. I'm an open book. I will answer anything, and I just want us all to be comfortable and confident going into these procedures. So anyways, thanks for joining me for this video. I hope that this has given you a little bit of information if you are looking for some in regards to this. But I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.